The rain pounded the city streets, turning the pavement into a mirror of flashing lights. Ethan Cole, the youngest billionaire in the world, stood frozen under a glowing neon sign. His tailored suit was soaked, but he didn't care. His heart raced as he stared at the figure across the street, a woman with tired eyes and a worn-out coat, holding a tattered umbrella. She hadn't seen him yet, but Ethan knew her instantly. Before we begin the story, comment below where you're watching from. Enjoy the story. Please subscribe to my channel for more sweet videos like this. Let the story continue. It was Lily, his best friend from childhood, the girl he'd promised to never forget. But why was she here, looking so lost? And why did her face carry a shadow of pain that made Ethan's chest ache? He took a step forward, ready to call her name, when a loud honk split the air. A black van screeched to a stop beside Lily. Two men in dark jackets jumped out, their faces hidden by hoods. Before Ethan could move, they grabbed her. Lily screamed, her umbrella falling to the ground as she struggled. The van's door slammed shut and it sped off into the night. Ethan's world spun. His childhood friend, the one he hadn't seen in 20 years, was gone, taken right in front of him. His hands shook as he pulled out his phone, ready to call his security team. But then he stopped. Something glinted on the wet pavement where Lily had stood. He knelt down and picked it up. It was a small, silver locket of a heart-shaped pendant. Ethan's breath caught. He knew this locket. He had the other half. They'd made a promise as kids to always keep them, no matter what. Why did Lily still have hers? And who were those men? Ethan's mind raced with questions, but one thing was clear. He had to find her. He clutched the locket tightly, the rain mixing with the tears in his eyes. What had just happened? And why did it feel like this moment was only the beginning of something much bigger? 20 years ago, in a small, sunny town called Willow Creek, Ethan and Lily were inseparable. They were only 9 years old, but their friendship was stronger than anything. Ethan was a skinny kid with messy brown hair and a big imagination. Lily was brave, with bright green eyes and a laugh that made everyone smile. They spent every day exploring the woods, building forts, and dreaming about the future. "I'm gonna be a billionaire one day," Ethan would say, holding up a stick like it was a fancy sword. "I'll buy a huge house, and we'll live there together." Lily would giggle, twirling a daisy in her fingers. "Okay, but I'm gonna be an artist. My paintings will be in museums, and you'll have to buy them all." They'd laugh and run through the fields, their hearts full of hope. One day, they found a shiny, heart-shaped locket in the creek. It was old and a little rusty, but to them, it was a treasure. They broke it in half, each keeping a piece. "This is our promise," Lily said, her voice serious. "No matter where we go, we'll always be friends. Deal?" "Deal," Ethan said, grinning. He tied his half of the locket around his neck, and Lily did the same. They thought nothing could ever tear them apart. But life had other plans. Ethan's dad got a new job in the city, and his family had to move away. The day they left, Ethan and Lily stood in her backyard, both trying not to cry. "I'll write to you every week," Ethan promised, his voice shaky. "And I'll send you my drawings," Lily said, hugging him tight. "We'll see each other again, Ethan. I know it." But the letters stopped after a few months. Ethan's new life in the city was busy, and Lily's family faced struggles he didn't know about. As the years passed, they lost touch. Ethan grew up, built a tech empire, and became a billionaire by 29. His face was on magazine covers, and he had everything money could buy except the one friend who'd made his childhood special. Now, standing in the rain with Lily's locket in his hand, Ethan felt like that 9-year-old boy again. His life of private jets and fancy parties seemed so far away. All he could think about was Lily, her scream, her scared eyes, and the van that took her. He had to find her, but he didn't know where to start. Ethan's first instinct was to call his security team. He had the best people in the world working for Hymex soldiers, hackers, even former spies. But something stopped him. The locket in his hand felt like a clue, a secret only he and Lily shared. If he told his team, they'd turn this into a mission, and Ethan wasn't sure he could trust anyone with something this stiffened by the van incident. He needed to do this himself, at least for now. He slipped the locket into his pocket and hailed a cab. The driver, an older man with a thick accent, glanced at him in the rearview mirror. "Rough night, huh?" "You could say that," Ethan muttered, staring out the window. The city lights blurred past, but all he saw was Lily's face. He told the driver to take him to his penthouse, a sleek apartment at the top of the tallest building in the city. It was his sanctuary, filled with art and gadgets, but tonight it felt empty. When he got home, Ethan didn't sleep. He sat at his desk, the locket in front of him, and started searching online. He looked up Lily's name, but there were too many people with the same name. He tried social media, old school records, anything he could think of. Nothing. It was like Lily had vanished not just tonight, but years ago. Frustrated, he leaned back in his chair, running a hand through his wet hair. That's when he remembered something. When they were kids, Lily used to hide notes in a secret Spoda hollow tree in the woods behind her house. She'd leave drawings or silly messages for Ethan to find. Maybe she still hid things. Maybe there was a clue somewhere. But Willow Creek was hours away, and the van could be anywhere by now. Ethan's stomach twisted. What if he was too late? What if those men hurt her? He pushed the thought away. He couldn't think like that. Lily was tough. She'd always been tougher than him. He had to believe she was okay. The next morning, Ethan packed a bag and rented a car under a fake name. He didn't want anyone tracking him, not his team, not the press, and definitely not whoever took Lily. The drive to Willow Creek was long, and every mile made his heart pound harder. What would he find there? Would the tree still be standing? And what if it was empty? When he reached the town, it felt like stepping into a memory. The main street looked the same, with its little shops and big oak trees, but it also felt smaller, sadder. Some stores were boarded up, and the playground where he and Lily used to swing was rusty and overgrown. Ethan parked near Lily's old house. It was still there, but the paint was peeling, and the yard was full of weeds. No one seemed to live there. He walked to the woods behind the house, his heart thumping. The path was overgrown, but he found the tree. It was still standing, its trunk wide and knotted. He knelt down and reached into the hollow. His fingers brushed something, a small, dusty notebook. Ethan's breath caught as he pulled it out. The cover was faded, but he recognized Lily's handwriting. It was her sketchbook, filled with drawings from when they were kids. There were pictures of them as superheroes, of the creek, of the locket. Ethan's eyes stung as he flipped through it. But the last page wasn't a drawing. It was a note, written in shaky handwriting, dated just a month ago. "Ethan, if you ever find this, I'm in trouble. I didn't want to drag you into this, but I don't know who else to trust. They're after me. I don't know why, but it's bad. If I don't make it, please don't forget me, Lily." Ethan's hands shook as he read it again. Lily had been here just weeks ago, and she was scared. Who was after her? And why? He tucked the notebook into his bag, his mind racing. He had a clue now, but it only raised more questions. He needed to find her. Fast. As he stood up, a twig snapped behind him. Ethan spun around, his heart in his throat. A man stood at the edge of the woods, watching him. He was tall, with a scar across his cheek, and cold, hard eyes. He didn't say a word, but his hand moved to his jacket, where Ethan saw the glint of a gun. Ethan froze. Was this one of the men from the van? Had they followed him? Or was this someone new? Someone who knew about the notebook? The man took a step closer, and Ethan's instincts kicked in. He turned and ran, his feet pounding the dirt as he dove deeper into the woods. Branches scratched his face, but he didn't stop. He could hear the man chasing him, his heavy footsteps getting closer. Ethan's lungs burned, but he kept going, zigzagging through the trees. He had to lose him. He had to get back to the car. He had to find Lily. But as he burst out of the woods, he skidded to a stop. Another man was waiting by his car, leaning against it like he owned it. He was older, with gray hair and a cruel smile. "Ethan Cole," he said, his voice smooth but dangerous. "We need to talk." Ethan's heart pounded. He was trapped. The man from the woods was closing in behind him, and the older man in front of him looked ready to pounce. Who were these people? What did they want with Lily? And how did they know his name? Ethan's breath came in short gasps as he stood trapped between the two men. The woods behind him rustled with the scarred man's approach, and the older man by the car watched him with a smirk that sent chills down his spine. The air felt heavy, like the moment before a storm. Ethan's hand tightened around the strap of his bag, where Lily's notebook was hidden. He didn't know who these men were, but one thing was clear. They were dangerous, and they wanted something from him. "Who are you?" Ethan asked, trying to keep his voice steady. His eyes darted between the men, searching for a way out. The older man chuckled, his gray hair glinting in the sunlight. "You don't need our names, Mr. Cole, but we know all about you. Billionaire, genius, the man who built an empire from nothing." He stepped closer, his polished shoes crunching on the gravel. "And now, the man who's sticking his nose where it doesn't belong." Ethan's heart raced. "I don't know what you're talking about. I'm just visiting my old hometown." The scarred man from the woods stepped into view, his gun now visible in his hand. "Don't play dumb," he growled. "We saw you at the tree. You found something. Hand it over." Ethan's mind spun. They knew about the notebook. But how? Had they been watching Lily? Or him? He tightened his grip on the bag. "I didn't find anything," he lied, hoping his face didn't betray him. The older man sighed, like he was disappointed. "Ethan, let's not make this harder than it needs to be. We want the book. Give it to us, and maybe we let your friend Lily go." Ethan's stomach dropped. They had Lily. They admitted it. His fear turned to anger, and he took a step forward, ignoring the gun. "Where is she? What did you do to her?" The scarred man raised his gun, but the older man held up a hand to stop him. "She's alive," he said calmly. "For now. But that depends on you. Give us the notebook, and we'll tell you where to find her." Ethan's mind raced. The notebook was his only clue to finding Lily, but if he gave it up, they might hurt her anyway. He didn't trust these men. Their eyes were too cold, their words too slick. He needed to buy time, to figure out a plan. "Why do you want it?" he asked. "It's just a kid's sketchbook." The older man's smile faded. "Don't play games, Cole. You don't know what you're dealing with. That book has information we need. Hand it over, or Lily pays the price." Ethan's heart pounded. He couldn't let them have the notebook, but he couldn't risk Lily's life either. He glanced around, desperate for an escape. The woods were dense, but he'd never outrun a bullet. The car was blocked. His phone was in his pocket, but calling for help would take too long. He was alone. Then he noticed something, a faint hum in the distance, like an engine. It was getting louder. The men noticed it too, their heads turning toward the sound. Ethan seized the moment. He bolted toward the woods, his legs pumping as he dove behind a tree. The scarred man shouted, and a gunshot rang out, splintering the bark above Ethan's head. He didn't stop. He ran deeper into the woods, clutching the bag to his chest. The hum grew louder, and suddenly, a motorcycle roared into view, skidding to a stop between Ethan and the men. The rider wore a black helmet, their face hidden. "Get on!" they shouted, their voice muffled but urgent. Ethan hesitated for a split second. Who was this? Friend or foe? But another gunshot whizzed past, and he had no choice. He jumped onto the back of the motorcycle, gripping the rider's waist as they sped off. The men's shouts faded behind them, swallowed by the roar of the engine. The motorcycle tore through the winding roads of Willow Creek, weaving past trees and old barns. Ethan's heart was still pounding, his mind a whirlwind of questions. Who was this rider? Where were they taking him? And what was in Lily's notebook that made those men so desperate? After what felt like forever, the rider slowed down and pulled into an abandoned barn on the edge of town. The doors creaked as they rolled shut, and the rider cut the engine. Silence settled, broken only by Ethan's heavy breathing. He slid off the bike, his legs shaky. "Who are you?" he demanded, stepping back. "And why did you help me?" The rider pulled off their helmet, revealing a woman with short dark hair and sharp blue eyes. She looked about Ethan's age, maybe a little older, with a scar above her eyebrow that made her look tough. "Name's Mara," she said, her voice low. "And I helped you because we're on the same side. You're trying to find Lily, right?" Ethan's eyes narrowed. "How do you know about Lily?" Mara leaned against the bike, crossing her arms. "Because I've been looking for her too. She's my sister." Ethan's jaw dropped. "Sister?" Lily never mentioned a sister. Then again, they'd lost touch when they were kids. A lot could have happened in 20 years. "Why should I trust you?" he asked. Mara smirked. "You shouldn't, but you don't have a lot of options right now, do you? Those guys back there? They're not playing around. They work for someone powerful, and they want whatever's in that notebook you're carrying." Ethan's hand instinctively went to his bag. "You know about the notebook?" "I know it's trouble," Mara said. "Lily's been running from those people for months. She left that notebook for you because she thought you could help. But you're in over your head, Billionaire. You need me." Ethan didn't like her tone, but she was right. He was out of his depth. He was used to boardrooms and tech deals, not guns and chases. "Okay," he said slowly. "Let's say I believe you. What's in the notebook, and who's after Lily?" Mara's expression darkened. "The notebook has proof of something big. Lily stumbled onto it by accident. It's why they're hunting her. As for who they are—" She hesitated, like she was weighing how much to tell him. "Let's just say they're connected to people with a lot of money and no morals. People who don't like loose ends." Ethan's stomach twisted. This was bigger than he'd thought. "Where's Lily now? Do you know?" Mara shook her head. "Not exactly. I've been tracking her for weeks, but she's good at hiding. Last I heard, she was in the city." "Then you saw her get taken." Her voice cracked, just for a moment, and Ethan saw the worry in her eyes. She cared about Lily, even if she acted tough. "So what do we do?" Ethan asked. Mara straightened up. "We figure out what's in that notebook. It's our best shot at finding her. But we need to be smart. Those guys will be looking for you now, and they've got eyes everywhere." Ethan nodded, his mind racing. He pulled the notebook from his bag and handed it to Mara. She flipped through it, her brow furrowing as she studied the drawings and the note at the end. "This doesn't make sense," she muttered. "It's just kid stuff. Except for this." She pointed to the note Lily had written, then turned the page. There, tucked into the binding, was a tiny slip of paper Ethan hadn't noticed before. Mara pulled it out and unfolded it. It was a list of numbers, written in Lily's handwriting. "Coordinates," Mara said, her eyes lighting up. "This could be where she's hiding or where they're keeping her." Ethan's heart leaped. A lead. Finally. "Can you figure out where it is?" Mara nodded. "I know someone who can help, but it's not safe here. We need to move." They left the barn as the sun began to set, casting long shadows across the fields. Mara drove the motorcycle, and Ethan held on, the notebook safely back in his bag. They headed toward the city, where Mara said her contact a hacker named Leo could decode the coordinates. Ethan's mind was a storm of emotions. He was scared for Lily, angry at the men chasing her, and confused about Mara. Could he trust her? She knew things about Lily, but she was holding something back. He could feel it. As they reached the city, the streets were alive with lights and noise. Mara pulled into a dark alley and parked behind a rundown building. "Stay close," she whispered, leading him through a back door. Inside, the air smelled of coffee and old electronics. A young man with wild hair and glasses sat at a desk covered in computers. This must be Leo. "About time," Leo said, glancing up. "Who's the suit?" "Ethan," Mara said. "He's with me. Got something for you." She handed him the slip of paper with the coordinates. Leo whistled. "Fancy. Give me a few minutes." His fingers flew over the keyboard, screens flickering with maps and data. Ethan paced, his nerves on edge. Every second felt like an eternity. What if the coordinates led to nothing? Or worse, what if they led to Lily? But she was. He shook his head, refusing to think about it. Mara watched him, her expression unreadable. You really care about her, don't you? She said quietly. She's my best friend, Ethan said, his voice thick. She was there for me when no one else was. I owe her. Mara nodded, like she understood. But before she could say more, Leo spun around in his chair. Got it, he said, pointing to a map on his screen. The coordinates point to an old warehouse on the edge of the city. It's been abandoned for years, but there's been activity there recently. Weird stuff trucks coming and going at night. Ethan's heart raced. That's where Lily is. It has to be. Mara grabbed her jacket. Then we go. Now. But Leo held up a hand. Hold up. There's something else. I hacked into some security feeds near the warehouse. It's not just a hideout. It's guarded. Heavily. Whoever's there, they don't want company. Ethan's stomach sank. Guards. Guns. This was getting more dangerous by the second. But he didn't care. He had to save Lily. Mara turned to him, her eyes fierce. You sure you're ready for this, Billionaire? This isn't a game. I'm ready, Ethan said, his voice firm. He thought of Lily's scream, her locket, her note. He wasn't backing down. They left Leo's place and climbed back onto the motorcycle, speeding toward the warehouse. The city blurred past, but Ethan's mind was focused on one thing: finding Lily. He didn't know what they'd face at the warehouse, but he was ready to fight. As they neared the warehouse, Mara slowed down and cut the engine. They hid the bike behind a dumpster and crept closer on foot. The warehouse loomed ahead, a dark, hulking shape against the night sky. Floodlights swept the perimeter, and Ethan could see shadows moving guards with rifles. Mara pulled out a pair of binoculars. At least 6 guys outside, she whispered. No telling how many inside. We need a plan. Ethan nodded, his mind racing. He wasn't a fighter, but he was smart. He'd built a tech empire by solving problems. He could figure this out. What if we distract them? He said. Draw them away from the entrance? Mara raised an eyebrow. Not bad. Got any ideas? Ethan glanced at the warehouse, then at the nearby power lines. I saw a control box back there. If we cut the power, the lights go out. They'll panic, and we can slip inside. Mara grinned. I like it. Let's move. They crept toward the control box, staying low. Ethan's heart pounded as he pried it open, his fingers fumbling with the wires. He wasn't an electrician, but he'd tinkered with enough gadgets to know the basics. One wrong move, and he could electrocute himself or worse, alert the guards. He found the main switch and flipped it. The floodlights died, plunging the warehouse into darkness. Shouts erupted from the guards, their footsteps pounding as they scrambled to figure out what happened. Now, Mara hissed. They ran toward the warehouse, slipping through a side door. Inside, it was pitch black, the air thick with the smell of oil and rust. Ethan's heart raced as they moved deeper, guided only by the faint glow of Mara's phone. They reached a hallway lined with doors. We need to check them all, Mara whispered. She could be anywhere. Ethan nodded, his throat tight. Every door could hold Lily or something worse. They split up, each taking a side. Ethan's hand shook as he opened the first door. It was empty, just crates and dust. The second was the same, but the third door was different. It was locked, a heavy padlock glinting in the dim light. Ethan's heart leaped. Mara, he whispered, waving her over. She examined the lock, then pulled a small tool from her pocket. Give me a second, she muttered, working the lock. Ethan held his breath, every sound amplified in the silence. If the guards came back now... The lock clicked open. Mara pushed the door, and it creaked inward. Inside was a small, dark room. Ethan's eyes adjusted, and he saw a figure curled up in the corner, hands tied. His heart stopped. Lily, he whispered. The figure stirred, lifting her head. Green eyes met his, wide with shock. It was her, Lily, alive. Ethan, she croaked, her voice weak but real. He rushed to her, dropping to his knees. It's me. I'm here. He fumbled with the ropes, his hands shaking. She looked thinner, her face bruised, but she was alive. Tears stung his eyes as he freed her hands. But before he could say more, a loud clang echoed through the warehouse. Footsteps pounded closer, and a voice shouted, "They're in here!" Mara spun around, her eyes wide. "We've got company. Move!" Ethan helped Lily to her feet, his arm around her as they stumbled toward the door. The footsteps were closing in, and flashlight beams danced down the hallway. They were out of time. As they ran, a figure stepped into the light ahead of a man in a suit, his face calm but deadly. It was the older man from Willow Creek, the one with the cruel smile. He clapped slowly, like he was impressed. "Well done, Ethan," he said. "You found her, but you're not leaving with her." The warehouse was a maze of shadows, the air thick with tension. Ethan held Lily close, her frail frame trembling against him as they faced the older man in the suit. His cruel smile gleamed under the flickering flashlight beams, and behind him, more guards appeared, their rifles glinting. Mara stood ready, her fists clenched, but Ethan knew they were outnumbered. The man's words echoed in his mind. "You're not leaving with her." His heart pounded. He'd just found Lily after 20 years, after all this danger, and now they were trapped. "Who are you?" Ethan demanded, his voice shaking but firm. "Why are you doing this to Lily?" The man tilted his head, like he was sizing Ethan up. "You're a curious one, aren't you, Mr. Cole? Always asking questions. That's what made you a billionaire, I suppose." He stepped closer, his polished shoes clicking on the concrete floor. "But curiosity can get you killed." Lily gripped Ethan's arm, her voice barely a whisper. "Ethan, don't listen to him. He's lying about everything." The man's smile vanished. "Quiet, Lily. You've caused enough trouble." He turned back to Ethan, his eyes cold. "Give me the notebook, and I'll let you walk away. Refuse, and none of you leave this warehouse alive." Ethan's hand tightened around the bag slung over his shoulder. The notebook was still inside, its secrets a mystery. Lily's note and the coordinates had led him here, but he still didn't know why it was so important. Whatever was in it, this man wanted it badly, and that meant Ethan couldn't let him have it. Mara stepped forward, her voice sharp. "You're not getting anything until you tell us what's going on. Why are you after my sister? What's in that notebook?" The man raised an eyebrow, amused. "Your sister, is it? My, Lily, you've been keeping secrets from your old friend Ethan, haven't you?" He gestured to one of the guards, who handed him a small device via tablet. He tapped the screen, and a grainy video began to play. Ethan's stomach twisted as he saw Lily on the screen, sneaking through what looked like an office, rifling through papers. She looked scared but determined, stuffing documents into a bag. "Lily here is quite the thief," the man said, his voice dripping with mock admiration. "She broke into my employer's office and stole something very valuable. The notebook you're carrying? It's not just a child's scribbles. It contains coded information that could ruin some very powerful people." Ethan's mind raced. Lily, a thief? It didn't make sense. The Lily he knew was kind, honest, always drawing pictures and dreaming of being an artist. But the video was real, and Lily's face paled as she watched it. "That's not the whole story," she whispered, her voice cracking. "Ethan, I swear." "Enough," the man snapped. "Hand over the notebook, or I'll have my men shoot you all right now." Ethan's heart pounded. He glanced at Lily, then at Mara, who gave him a slight nod, her eyes flicking toward the shadows. She was planning something, but what? He needed to stall. "Okay," he said, raising his hand slowly. "I'll give you the notebook, but first, tell me who you work for. If I'm going to die, I at least want to know why." The man chuckled, but there was no warmth in it. "You think you're clever, don't you? Fine, I'll humor you. My employer is someone you've probably heard of, Victor Kane." Ethan's blood ran cold. Victor Kane was a name whispered in the tech world, a shadowy figure who controlled a network of companies and investments. He was untouchable, richer than Ethan, and rumored to be ruthless. If Kane was behind this, Lily was in deeper trouble than Ethan had imagined. "Why does Kane care about a notebook?" Ethan asked, his voice steady despite the fear clawing at him. The man's eyes narrowed. "Let's just say Lily stumbled onto something she shouldn't have evidence of Kane's less legal dealings. She thought she could expose him. Foolish girl." He held out his hand. "Now, the notebook. Last chance." Ethan's mind raced. He couldn't give up the notebook, but he couldn't let them hurt Lily or Mara either. He glanced at Mara again, and this time, he saw her hand slip into her pocket. She was ready. He just needed to keep the man talking. "What's to stop you from killing us once you have it?" Ethan said, stepping slightly to the side, drawing the man's attention. "You don't exactly seem trustworthy." The man laughed. "Trust? Oh, Ethan, you're in the wrong business for that. But I'll make you a deal. Give me the notebook, and I'll let Lily go. You and Mara, well, that's another story." Lily's grip on Ethan's arm tightened. "Don't do it," she whispered. "He's lying. He'll kill us all." Before Ethan could respond, Mara moved. She yanked something from her pocket, a small, black device, and threw it to the ground. A blinding flash and a deafening bang filled the room. Smoke poured from the device, choking the air. The guards shouted, their flashlights swinging wildly. "Run!" Mara yelled, grabbing Ethan's hand. He pulled Lily along, his lungs burning as they stumbled through the smoke. Gunshots rang out, bullets pinging off the metal walls. Ethan's heart raced as they dove behind a stack of crates, the smoke giving them just enough cover. "Stay low," Mara hissed, peering around the crates. "We need to get to the back exit." Lily coughed, her voice weak. It's guarded. I saw them when they brought me here." Ethan's mind raced. They were trapped, with guards at every exit and the man Kane's lackey hunting them. But he wasn't giving up. He'd promised Lily they'd always be friends, and he wasn't breaking that promise now. "Mara," he whispered, "do you have any more of those flash things?" She shook her head. "That was my only one, but I've got something else." She pulled a small knife from her boot and handed it to Ethan. "If it comes to it, use this. Aim for the legs. It'll slow them down." Ethan stared at the knife, his stomach churning. He'd never hurt anyone before. But for Lily, he'd do whatever it took. He nodded, tucking the knife into his belt. Lily grabbed his hand, her eyes wide with fear, but also something else trust. "I'm sorry, Ethan," she said softly. "I didn't want you to get involved. I didn't know who else to turn to." Ethan squeezed her hand. "It's okay. I'm here now. We're getting out of this." Mara peeked around the crates again, then cursed under her breath. "They're spreading out. We've got maybe a minute before they find us. We need a distraction." Ethan's mind flashed to his tech skills. He wasn't a fighter, but he was a problem solver. He scanned the warehouse, his eyes landing on a control panel on the wall, barely visible through the thinning smoke. It looked like it controlled the warehouse's machinery, maybe a conveyor belt or a crane. If he could hack it, he could cause chaos, enough to give them a chance to escape. "I've got an idea," he said, his voice low. "Cover me." Mara nodded, pulling a small pistol from her jacket. Ethan's eyes widened. She'd been armed this whole time. But there was no time to ask questions. He crawled toward the control panel, staying low as the guards' shouts grew closer. Lily stayed behind the crates, her breathing ragged but steady. Ethan reached the panel and pried it open. Inside was a mess of wires and a small digital screen. It was old tech, but he could work with it. His fingers flew over the controls, bypassing the password with a trick he'd learned in his early coding days. The screen flickered, and a menu appeared, options for the warehouse's machinery. He selected the overhead crane, a massive piece of equipment hanging from the ceiling. If he could make it move, it might distract the guards. He typed a command, and the crane whirred to life, its heavy hook swinging wildly across the warehouse. Crates toppled, and the guards shouted, diving for cover, as the hook crashed into a stack of barrels. "Now!" Ethan hissed, signaling to Mara. She grabbed Lily, and they ran toward the back exit, Ethan close behind. The crane's chaos gave them a window, but it wouldn't last long. They reached the exit, a heavy metal door. Mara kicked it open, and they stumbled into the cool night air. But their relief was short-lived. Two guards stood outside, their rifles raised. "Freeze!" one shouted. Ethan's heart sank. They'd come so far, only to be caught again. But Mara didn't hesitate. She dove forward, tackling one guard to the ground before he could fire. The other guard swung his rifle toward her, but Ethan acted on instinct. He pulled the knife from his belt and threw it, aiming for the guard's leg. It hit, and the guard yelped, dropping his weapon. Mara knocked out the first guard and grabbed the second's rifle. "Go!" she shouted, covering them as Ethan and Lily ran toward the trees. They dove into the shadows, their breaths ragged. Mara caught up moments later, the rifle slung over her shoulder. They kept running until the warehouse was a distant glow. When they finally stopped, collapsing behind a cluster of bushes, Ethan's legs felt like jelly. Lily clung to him, her eyes filled with tears. "You came for me," she whispered. "After all these years." Ethan hugged her tightly, his own eyes stinging. "I told you we'd always be friends." Mara crouched nearby, scanning the darkness. "Save the reunion for later," she said, her voice tense. "We're not safe yet. Kane's men will be after us, and they won't stop." Ethan nodded, his mind racing. They'd escaped, but the notebook was still in his bag, and Kane's men were still hunting them. He needed to know what was in that notebook, what made it worth all this. "Lily," he said softly, "what's in the notebook?" "The truth." Lily's face tightened, like she was scared to say it. She took a shaky breath. It's evidence. Evidence that Victor Kane is running a secret operation. He's been buying up land, forcing people out of their homes, and using it to hide something illegal. I found documents, emails, and plans. I put them in the notebook, in code, so no one would know unless they knew how to read it. Ethan's jaw dropped. "What kind of illegal stuff?" Lily swallowed hard. "I don't know everything, but it's big. Weapons, maybe, or drugs. He's got politicians and police in his pocket. That's why I couldn't go to anyone else. I thought if I left the notebook for you, you'd know what to do." Ethan's mind reeled. Victor Kane wasn't just a businessman. He was a criminal mastermind. And Lily had stumbled into the heart of his empire. No wonder they wanted her dead. Mara stood up, her expression grim. "We need to move. If Kane's as powerful as you say, he'll have people everywhere. We need to decode that notebook and get the evidence to someone who can stop him." Ethan nodded, but a new fear gnawed at him. Who could they trust? If Kane had politicians and police on his side, who was safe? And what if Mara wasn't telling the whole truth? She'd saved them, but she was still a stranger, and her story about being Lily's sister felt off. As they started moving through the woods, Ethan kept Lily close, the notebook heavy in his bag. They needed a plan, but the deeper they got, the more dangerous it felt. Kane's men were out there, and they weren't giving up. Suddenly, Mara froze, her hand raised. "Wait," she whispered. "Do you hear that?" Ethan strained his ears. At first, there was nothing but the rustle of leaves. Then he heard it, a low, rhythmic thumping, like a heartbeat in the distance. It was getting closer. "Helicopter," Mara said, her voice tight. "They found us." Ethan's heart raced. A helicopter meant Kane's men had resources. Big resources. They were being hunted from the air now, and there was nowhere to hide in the open woods. The thumping grew louder, and a spotlight swept through the trees, casting eerie shadows. "Run!" Mara shouted, grabbing Lily's hand. They sprinted through the woods, branches snapping under their feet. The spotlight was relentless, tracking them like prey. Ethan's lungs burned, but he didn't stop. He couldn't lose Lily again. They reached a clearing, and the helicopter roared overhead, its light blinding. A voice boomed from a speaker, cold and commanding. "Ethan Cole, Lily Harper, Marathis is your only warning. Surrender the notebook, or we open fire." Ethan's blood ran cold. They knew Mara's name, they knew everything. And as the helicopter hovered, its spotlight pinning them in place, Ethan saw something that made his heart stop. Mara's face wasn't just scared, it was guilty. She wouldn't meet his eyes. "Mara," he said, his voice low. "What aren't you telling us?" The helicopter's spotlight burned down on them, turning the clearing into a stage where Ethan, Lily, and Mara stood exposed. The thumping blades drowned out the night, and the voice from the speaker echoed in Ethan's ears. "Surrender the notebook, or we open fire." His heart pounded as he gripped Lily's hand, her fingers cold and trembling. But it was Mara's face that held his attention. Her eyes darted away, her jaw tight with something that looked like guilt. Ethan's stomach twisted. Something was wrong. Very wrong. "Mara," he said again, his voice barely audible over the helicopter's roar. "What do they know about you?" Mara's head snapped toward him, her blue eyes flashing with a mix of fear and defiance. "Not now, Ethan," she hissed, glancing up at the helicopter. "We need to move." But Ethan didn't budge. The way the voice had said her name, Mara, not Lily's sister, or some vague threat, felt too specific, too personal. He tightened his grip on the bag with the notebook, his mind racing. "They know you," he said, stepping closer to her. "Why do they know you?" Lily looked between them, her face pale. "Ethan, what's going on?" she whispered, her voice shaky. "Mara's my sister. She's helping us." "Is she?" Ethan asked, his eyes locked on Mara. The helicopter's spotlight swept over them again, and he could hear the guards shouting in the distance, closing in. They were running out of time, but he needed answers. Mara's shoulders slumped, and for a moment, she looked defeated. "Fine," she said, her voice low. "You want the truth? I'm not Lily's sister. I lied." Lily gasped, her hand slipping from Ethan's. "What?" she whispered, her voice breaking. "Mara, you said—" "I know what I said," Mara snapped, her eyes flicking to the trees where the guards' flashlights were getting closer. "I had to get you to trust me, okay? I'm not your sister, but I am trying to help you. I've been working against Kane for years. I was one of his operatives." Ethan's blood ran cold. "You worked for Victor Kane?" His mind reeled, piecing together the Clusher skills, her weapons, the way she knew so much about the notebook. It made sense, but it also made her dangerous. Mara said, emphasizing the word. "I turned on him when I found out what he was really doing. The weapons, the land grabs, the people he's hurt. It's worse than you know. I've been leaking information to take him down, but I needed Lily's notebook to finish the job. That's why I tracked her. That's why I found you." Lily's eyes filled with tears. "You lied to me," she said, her voice trembling. "I trusted you." Mara's face softened, just for a moment. "I'm sorry, Lily. I didn't want to hurt you. But Kane's men were closing in, and I had to act fast. You're not the only one he's after. He knows I betrayed him. That's why they're hunting me too." The helicopter's voice boomed again, cutting through their argument. "You have 10 seconds to surrender, or we open fire." Ethan's heart raced. They were surrounded, guards on the ground, a helicopter in the air, and now Mara's betrayal hanging between them. He didn't know who to trust, but one thing was clear. They couldn't stay here. "We'll deal with this later," he said, grabbing Lily's arm. "Right now, we're running." Mara nodded, her expression grim. "Follow me. I know a way out." Ethan hesitated, but the crack of a gunshot in the distance made the decision for him. They sprinted into the woods, the helicopter's spotlight chasing them. Mara led the way, weaving through the trees with a confidence that only came from experience. Ethan kept Lily close, his mind a storm of questions. Could he trust Mara? Was she really trying to stop Kane? Or was this another lie? The woods thinned, and they reached a narrow dirt road where an old pickup truck was parked, half hidden by bushes. Mara yanked open the driver's door. "Get in!" she shouted. Ethan helped Lily into the back seat, then climbed in beside her. Mara gunned the engine, and the truck roared to life, bouncing down the road as the helicopter's light faded behind them. For now, they'd escaped, but Ethan knew it wouldn't last. Kane's men were relentless, and the notebook in his bag was a ticking time bomb. The truck rattled along back roads, the only sound the hum of the engine and Lily's quiet sniffles. Ethan sat beside her, his arm around her shoulders, trying to process everything. Mara's betrayal stung, but it was Lily's pain that hurt him most. She'd been through so much: kidnapped, betrayed, hunted, and now this. "Lily," he said softly, "I'm here. We're going to figure this out, okay?" She nodded, wiping her eyes. I thought Mara was family. I thought I could trust her." Ethan glanced at Mara, who was focused on the road, her knuckles white on the steering wheel. "We don't know her whole story yet," he said, though he wasn't sure he believed it. "But we're together now. That's what matters." Mara's eyes flicked to the rearview mirror, meeting Ethan's. "I know you don't trust me," she said, her voice steady. "And I don't blame you, but I'm telling the truth about Kane. He's a monster, and that notebook is the only thing that can stop him. If we don't decode it soon, he'll find us, and it'll all be for nothing." Ethan's jaw tightened. "Then tell us everything. No more lies. What's in the notebook and how do we decode it?" Mara hesitated, like she was weighing her words. "The notebook has a Codeus cipher Lily created. It's based on your old drawings, the ones you two made as kids. That's why she left it for you, Ethan. You're the only one who can crack it." Ethan's heart skipped a beat. He looked at Lily, who nodded slowly. "It's true," she said. "When I found Kane's documents, I knew I had to hide them. I used our old drawings, the ones we made in Willow Creek, as a key. The notebook looks like kid stuff, but the sketches are a map to the real evidence. You'd know the patterns, Ethan. You'd remember." Ethan's mind flashed back to their childhood, the forts, the creek, the silly drawings they'd scribble for hours. He'd always been good at puzzles, and Lily had loved making secret codes. It was their game, their way of dreaming big. Now, it was their only hope. "Okay," he said, his voice firm. "Then we need a safe place to work on it, somewhere Kane can't find us." Mara nodded. "I know a place. An old safe house I used when I was working for Kane. It's off the grid, no cameras, no tech. We can lie low and decode the notebook." Ethan didn't like the idea of following Mara again, but they didn't have many options. "How do we know you're not leading us into a trap?" he asked. Mara's eyes hardened. "You don't. But if I wanted you dead, I could have let Kane's men take you back there. I'm risking my life for this. Same as you." Lily touched Ethan's arm. "I think we should go," she said quietly. "We need to trust her for now." Ethan nodded, though doubt gnawed at him. "Okay, but if you're lying, Mara, I'll find a way to stop you." Mara's lips twitched, almost a smile. "Fair enough, Billionaire." They drove for hours, the truck winding through empty roads, until they reached a small cabin hidden in the mountains. It was run down, with moss on the roof and windows boarded up, but it was isolated. No roads, no neighbors, no way for Kane to track them. Mara parked the truck behind a pile of logs and led them inside. The cabin was sparse, with a creaky table, a few chairs, and a dusty lantern. Ethan set the notebook on the table, his hands shaking with a mix of exhaustion and hope. This was it, the moment they'd been running for. If they could decode the notebook, they could stop Kane and save Lily. Lily sat beside him, her face pale but determined. "The drawings," she said, opening the notebook. "Look at the patterns. The trees, the creek, the stars we drew. They're not random. They're code." Ethan studied the pages, his mind slipping back to their childhood. He remembered the way Lily would draw spirals for the creek, dots for the stars, lines for the trees. Slowly, patterns emerged. The spirals weren't just decoration, they matched numbers. The dots formed sequences. The lines pointed to specific pages. "It's a substitution cipher," Ethan said, his voice rising with excitement. "Each drawing represents a letter or number. If we map them out, we can translate the code." Mara leaned over the table, her eyes sharp. "How long will it take?" Ethan frowned, flipping through the pages. "A few hours, maybe. It's complex, but I can do it." Lily smiled, a flicker of her old self. "You always were the smart one." Ethan's heart warmed, but he pushed the feeling aside. There was no time for nostalgia. He grabbed a pencil and started working, sketching out the cipher key based on their old drawings. Lily helped, pointing out details he'd forgotten, while Mara kept watch by the window, her pistol ready. Hours passed, the lantern casting long shadows as Ethan pieced together the code. His eyes burned, but he didn't stop. The drawings became letters, then words, then sentences. Finally, he sat back, his heart pounding. "I've got it," he said, his voice hoarse. Lily leaned closer, her breath catching. "What does it say?" Ethan read the decoded message aloud. "Kane's operation is at Blackwood Quarry. Weapons stockpile. Coordinates 47.892, 122.304. Evidence hidden in a vault under the foreman's office. Key is locked." Ethan's hand went to his pocket, where the half of the heart-shaped locket still sat. Lily's eyes widened. "The locket," she whispered. "I hid the key in my half, but I lost it when they took me." Ethan pulled out his half, the silver glinting in the lantern light. "I found yours," he said, handing it to her. "It was on the street, after the van." Lily's fingers trembled as she took it, tears in her eyes. "You kept yours all these years?" "Always," Ethan said, his voice soft. Mara cleared her throat, breaking the moment. "That's sweet, but we've got bigger problems. Blackwood Quarry is Kane's fortress. If the evidence is there, it's heavily guarded. And if we go, we're walking into a war zone." Ethan's stomach twisted. A weapons stockpile, a vault, Kane's men everywhere. It sounded impossible. But the evidence in that vault could bring Kane down and save Lily. "We don't have a choice," he said. "We go to the quarry." Lily nodded, her face set. "I'm in. I started this. I need to finish it." Mara sighed, holstering her pistol. "You two are crazy, but I'm not letting you go alone. We'll need a plan and backup." Ethan frowned. "Backup? Who can we trust?" Mara hesitated, then pulled out a burner phone. "I know someone, an old contact from my Kane days. He's clean, and he hates Kane as much as I do, but it's a risk." Ethan exchanged a look with Lily. Another risk, another leap of faith, but they were running out of options. "Do it," he said. Mara nodded and stepped outside to make the call, leaving Ethan and Lily alone. The cabin was quiet, the weight of their discovery settling over them. Ethan looked at Lily, her face bruised but fierce, and felt a surge of protectiveness. They'd been apart for 20 years, but she was still his best friend. He'd do anything to keep her safe. "Ethan," Lily said softly, "if we don't make it—" "Don't say that," he cut her off. "We're going to make it. We'll get the evidence, stop Kane, and go back to Willow Creek. We'll sit by the creek and laugh like we used to." Lily smiled, but it was sad. "I hope so." Before Ethan could say more, Mara burst back into the cabin, her face pale. "We've got a problem," she said, her voice tight. "My contact just warned me Kane's men are already on their way here. Someone tipped them off." Ethan's heart stopped. "Tipped them off? Who?" Mara's eyes flicked to the floor, then back to Ethan. "I don't know, but we need to leave. Now." As they grabbed their things, Ethan's mind raced. Someone had betrayed them again. Was it Mara's contact? Or was Mara playing them, leading them into another trap? The notebook was decoded, the locket was in their hands, but danger was closing in faster than ever. They piled into the truck, the engine roaring as Mara sped down the mountain. Headlights appeared in the distance, growing closer. Ethan's heart pounded as he realized they weren't alone. Kane's men had found them, and this time, there was nowhere to run. The truck swerved, tires screeching, as a black SUV barreled toward them. Gunshots cracked through the night, shattering the windshield. Lily screamed, and Ethan pulled her down, his body shielding hers. Mara cursed, yanking the wheel to avoid a collision. "Hold on!" she shouted, as the truck veered off the road and into the trees. The world spun, branches snapping against the windows. Ethan's last thought before the truck slammed into something hard was Lily's hand in his, and the locket pressed between them. The world was a blur of pain and noise as Ethan's eyes fluttered open. His head throbbed, and the taste of blood lingered in his mouth. The truck was tilted at an odd angle, its front crumpled against a massive tree. Shattered glass sparkled in the dim moonlight filtering through the branches. Ethan's heart lurched as he turned to Lily, slumped beside him in the back seat. Her eyes were closed, her face pale, but her chest rose and fell with shallow breaths. She was alive. "Lily," he whispered, his voice hoarse. He reached for her hand, feeling the cool metal of the locket still clutched in her fingers. Relief washed over him, but it was short-lived. Headlights pierced the darkness outside, and the sound of shouting grew closer. Kane's men were coming. In the driver's seat, Mara groaned, her forehead bleeding from a gash. She shook her head, trying to clear it, and cursed under her breath. "We're not done yet," she muttered, grabbing her pistol from the floor. She glanced back at Ethan. "Get Lily out. I'll hold them off." Ethan's mind raced. Mara's betrayal still stung, but she'd risked her life to get them this far. Could he trust her now? He didn't have a choice. "Don't die," he said, his voice firm. "We're not finished with you." Mara gave a wry smile. "Noted, billionaire." Ethan unbuckled Lily's seatbelt and gently lifted her, wincing as pain shot through his ribs. The truck's door was jammed, but he kicked it open, stumbling into the cold night air. The woods were alive with movement flashlights sweeping through the trees, voices barking orders. Kane's men were closing in, and they weren't taking prisoners. He carried Lily deeper into the forest, her weight heavy but comforting. She stirred, her eyes fluttering open. "Ethan?" she mumbled, her voice weak. "I've got you," he said, his heart aching at the sight of her bruised face. "Just hold on." Behind them, gunshots rang out, sharp and rapid. Mara was fighting, buying them time. Ethan's stomach, twisted with guilt, didn't want to leave her, but Lily was his priority. He had to get her to safety, decode the notebook's final secrets, and find the evidence at Blackwood Quarry. He found a small hollow beneath a fallen log and gently set Lily down, covering her with his jacket. Her eyes were clearer now, though pain etched her features. "The locket," she whispered, pressing it into his hand. "It's the key. You need to get to the quarry." Ethan shook his head. "I'm not leaving you." "You have to," she said, her voice fierce despite her weakness. "Kane's men won't stop. The evidence in that vault, it's the only way to end this. You're the only one who can do it, Ethan." His throat tightened. She was right, but the thought of leaving her here, alone and hurt, tore at him. "I promised we'd stay together," he said, his voice breaking. Lily's eyes softened, and she touched his cheek. "You kept your promise. You found me. Now finish this for both of us." Before he could argue, a rustle in the bushes made him freeze. He spun around, expecting Kane's men, but it was Mara, limping toward them. Her jacket was torn, blood streaking her arm, but she was alive. "They're right behind me," she panted. "We've got minutes, maybe less." Ethan's relief at seeing her was overshadowed by suspicion. "How'd you get away?" he asked, his voice sharp. Mara's eyes narrowed. "I'm good at what I do, but if you want to interrogate me, do it later. We need to move." Ethan glanced at Lily, who nodded weakly. "She's right," she said. "Go with her, Ethan. I'll be okay." Every instinct screamed at him to stay, but he knew they were out of time. He squeezed Lily's hand, then stood, facing Mara. "You're taking me to the quarry," he said. "And if this is a trick, I'll make sure you regret it." Mara nodded, unfazed. "Deal. Let's go." They helped Lily deeper into the hollow, covering her with branches to hide her. Ethan's heart ached as he kissed her forehead. "I'll come back for you," he promised. "I know you will," she whispered, her eyes shining with trust. Mara led him through the woods, moving fast despite her injuries. The sounds of Kane's men faded, but Ethan knew they weren't safe. The quarry was miles away, and they had no vehicle, no backup, and only the notebook and locket to guide them. But Ethan's resolve hardened with every step. He'd lost Lily once, he wouldn't lose her again. They reached a small town by dawn, stealing a beat-up motorcycle from a barn. Mara drove, her focus razor-sharp, while Ethan clung to the notebook and locket, his mind racing. The coordinates for Blackwood Quarry were burned into his memory, but the reality of what lay ahead was daunting. A weapons stockpile, guards, a vault. And Victor Kane, a man who'd stop at nothing to protect his empire. As they sped toward the quarry, Ethan's thoughts drifted to their childhood. He and Lily had dreamed of adventure, of being heroes. Now, those dreams were real, but the stakes were deadly. He clutched the locket, its familiar weight grounding him. It was more than a key, it was a symbol of their promise, their bond. He wouldn't let Kane destroy that. Mara slowed the motorcycle as they neared the quarry, parking it behind a ridge. The quarry was a sprawling pit of gravel and machinery, surrounded by a high fence topped with barbed wire. Floodlights swept the perimeter, and armed guards patrolled with dogs. It looked like a fortress. "This is insane," Ethan muttered, his heart sinking. "How are we supposed to get in?" Mara scanned the quarry with binoculars. "We don't go in guns blazing. We're smarter than that. The foreman's office is in the center, see that building with the red roof? That's where the vault is. We just need to get past the guards." Ethan raised an eyebrow. "Just?" Mara smirked. "You're the tech genius. Got any tricks up your sleeve?" Ethan's mind raced. He wasn't a soldier, but he knew systems. Quarries like this relied on tech security cameras, alarms, maybe even automated gates. If he could hack their network, he could create a distraction. "Get me to their control room," he said. "I can shut down their systems." Mara nodded. "Risky, but it's a plan. Follow me." They crept along the ridge, staying low to avoid the floodlights. Mara's training was evident. She moved like a shadow, silent and precise. Ethan struggled to keep up, his body aching from the crash, but adrenaline kept him going. They reached a small utility shed near the fence, where a single guard stood smoking a cigarette. Mara motioned for Ethan to stay back, then slipped behind the guard, knocking him out with a swift blow to the neck. She dragged him into the shed and emerged with his keycard. "We're in," she whispered. They used the keycard to open a side gate, slipping into the quarry. The air smelled of dust and diesel, and the hum of machinery filled the night. Ethan's heart pounded as they darted between crates, avoiding patrols. The control room was a small building near the foreman's office, its windows dark. Mara picked the lock, and they slipped inside. The room was crammed with monitors and a central computer. Ethan sat at the keyboard, his fingers flying as he hacked into the system. It was old but functional, and within minutes, he had access to the security feeds, alarms, and gate controls. "Here goes nothing," he muttered, triggering a false alarm on the far side of the quarry. Sirens blared, and the monitors showed guards sprinting toward the fake breach. Ethan then looped the camera feeds, making it look like the central area was clear. Mara whistled. "Not bad, Billionaire." They slipped out and ran to the foreman's office, a squat building with a heavy door. Ethan's hands shook as he pulled out the locket, its two halves now together. Lily had said it was the key, but how? He examined the vault door, a massive steel slab with a strange heart-shaped slot. "It's a custom lock," Mara said, her voice tense. "Kane's paranoid. Try the locket." Ethan pressed the locket into the slot, twisting it. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, a soft click echoed, and the vault door swung open. Ethan's heart leaped they'd done it. Inside was a small room lined with files and hard drives. Ethan grabbed a stack of documents, scanning them quickly. They were exactly what Lily had described: emails, contracts, proof of Kane's illegal weapons deals, and land grabs. This was the evidence they needed to bring him down. But as they stuffed the files into a bag, a cold voice cut through the air. "Impressive, Mr. Cole." Ethan spun around. Victor Kane himself stood in the doorway, flanked by two guards. He was tall, with silver hair and eyes like a predator. His smile was calm, but it sent chills down Ethan's spine. "You've caused me a lot of trouble," Kane said, stepping closer. But it ends here. Mara raised her pistol, but Kane's guards were faster, disarming her in seconds. Ethan clutched the bag of evidence, his mind racing. They were trapped, and Kane's men were closing in. "You don't have to do this," Ethan said, his voice steady despite the fear. "Let us go, and we'll disappear. No one has to see these files." Kane laughed, a sound like breaking glass. "You think I'd let you walk away? You have no idea what you're holding. Those files are my empire and my leverage. Hand them over, and I might let you live." Ethan's eyes flicked to Mara, who gave a slight nod. She was ready to fight, even if it was hopeless. But Ethan had one last card to play. He'd noticed a satellite uplink in the control room, a way to broadcast data. If he could get back there, he could send the evidence to the world. He took a step back, pretending to cower. "Okay," he said, holding up the bag. "You win." Kane's smile widened, but as he reached for the bag, Ethan threw it at him, diving toward the door. Mara tackled one guard, and Ethan sprinted for the control room, his heart pounding. Gunshots rang out behind him, but he didn't stop. He burst into the control room, locking the door, and plugged the hard drives into the uplink. His fingers flew over the keyboard, sending the files to every news outlet, government agency, and hacker group he could think of. The upload bar crept forward, agonizingly slow. Outside, he heard shouts and pounding on the door. He was out of time. The door burst open and Kane stormed in, his face twisted with rage. "You fool," he roared, raising a gun. But before he could fire, a deafening explosion shook the quarry. Ethan ducked, the monitors flickering as chaos erupted outside. Through the window, he saw helicopters, not Kane's, but marked with government logos. Mara's contact had come through. Backup had arrived. Kane's face paled as he realized he'd lost. He lunged for Ethan, but agents swarmed the room, tackling him to the ground. Ethan collapsed, relief flooding him. The evidence was out. Kane was finished. Days later, Ethan sat by Lily's hospital bed, the locket resting on the table between them. She was recovering, her bruises fading, her smile returning. The quarry raid had made headlines, and Kane's empire was crumbling, his crimes exposed to the world. Mara had disappeared, leaving a note apologizing for her lies but promising to keep fighting. "You did it," Lily said, her voice soft. "You saved me, and you stopped Kane." Ethan shook his head, taking her hand. "We did it, together, like we always promised." Lily's eyes sparkled with tears. "I never forgot you, Ethan. Not once." He smiled, his heart full. "Me neither." They sat in silence, the locket glinting in the sunlight. Their reunion had been heartwarming, but it was more than that. It was a reminder of a promise kept, a friendship unbroken. And as they looked out the window, Ethan knew they'd face whatever came next, side by side, just like when they were kids.